Welcome to another series of dramatized Bigfoot encounters from the archives. Let's first get started with Encounter 1, the Bat Survey Team's midnight sighting of 2006, submitted by Anonymous. Date Saturday, July 29, 2006. Location Boone County, West Virginia, USA. I want to preface this report with a small fact. I've always wanted to see a Bigfoot. Based on what I saw tonight, I believe I finally did. I work for a monitoring lab that conducts late-night bat surveys. Recently, we were commissioned to survey for Motorists sodalis, the Indiana bat, to ensure they weren't roosting on an active mine site. On the second night of our 6-day survey, my co-worker and I were checking one of the nets when we heard a very loud whooping howl nearby. Within 30 feet of where we stood, it was around 1:30 a.m. At first, I thought someone was playing a prank by making howling noises. But after a second vocalization, I knew it wasn't a person. I froze, scanning the tree line with my flashlight. Though I didn't see anything, I heard the sound of something large moving through the woods. The next night, I was stationed at a different part of the survey area. Two coworkers, back where I'd heard the noise, later reported strange sounds and found a spot where something large had trampled the undergrowth. On the final night of the survey, I returned to the same area. I was feeling more relaxed since I hadn't heard anything unusual for a while. Around 2:30 a.m., as I checked the nets with two coworkers, a single high-pitched whoop pierced the night. Startled, I quickly shone my flashlight in the direction of the sound. About 40 yards ahead, a large bipedal creature crossed the road. It was tall, probably around 7 feet, with short, coarse black hair covering its entire body except for its brown face. The creature paused, looking directly at us before taking 2 steps and disappearing up an embankment. Terrified, we ran back to my truck, where one of my coworkers grabbed a machete. When my boss and another technician arrived, the 5 of us returned to the spot. In the mud, we found 2 large, deep footprints, far bigger than any of our shoes. The grass and brush in the creature's path were trampled, with broken twigs indicating something very large had moved through quickly. We packed up and left immediately, all of us deeply shaken. I plan to return soon to gather more evidence. Also noticed 2 large footprints with deep indentations, much larger than human feet. Other witnesses, 3 during the sighting, 5 for the footprints, and 2 heard noises only. Other stories, none reported. Time and conditions, 2:30 a.m., rainy, dark night. Environment wooded area near an active mine site, along a decrepit dirt road near a creek bed, flanked by steep, sloping hills. Encounter 2. ATV riders flee. Sasquatch 2009. Submitted by Anonymous. Date Wednesday, August 5th, 2009. Location near Shady Spring, Raleigh County, West Virginia, USA. In May 2009, my wife and I were riding an ATV about a mile from an abandoned strip mine. We crested a small hill and saw something about 25 to 30 yards ahead, standing behind a thin tree. It was solid black, 8 to 9 feet tall, and clearly too large to be hidden by the tree. I noticed it first and stopped abruptly, fumbling to get the ATV in reverse. My wife, confused, asked what I was doing. I simply said, "Look." When she saw it, she started screaming, "Oh my God, no, no, no." The creature stood motionless, watching us. Finally, I managed to turn the ATV around and we sped away as fast as possible. My wife kept looking back to see if it was following us. Thankfully, it didn't, but I didn't slow down for miles. The encounter was so terrifying that it permanently changed me. I used to love the outdoors, but now I avoid it. Weeks later, I worked up the nerve to return to the area with 3 heavily armed friends. We found several unsettling signs: trees pushed over, large logs blocking trails, and areas where something had clearly been through. Also noticed, on a later visit, we found toppled trees, logs across trails, and evidence of large animal movement. Other witnesses, myself and my wife during the sighting, 3 others during the investigation. Other stories, several reports from nearby areas, including a police officer who saw a similar creature cross the road, and a friend whose deer carcass was reportedly carried off by something large. Time and conditions, around 4:30 p.m. Sunny, about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Environment, a mountain ridge ATV trail with dense poplar, hickory, and oak trees. Encounter 3. Motorists Nighttime Sighting 2006. Submitted by Anonymous. Date Monday, November 6, 2006. Location, US 250 near Bellington, West Virginia, USA. In March 2006, I was driving alone on US 250 North, heading toward Philippi. About a mile out of Bellington, I passed a small group of houses. The road curved, and my headlights illuminated something standing on the white line at the edge of the road. At first, I thought it was a very tall man, at least 6'4", with long reddish hair and a beard. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't wearing clothes. The reddish-brown hair covered its entire body, sleek and smooth, like a horse's mane. I didn't see its eyes, but I sensed it had shut them when my headlights hit it. It stood stiff and still as I passed, so close that I thought my side mirror would hit it. The whole encounter lasted only 10 seconds, but it felt much longer. I was terrified and didn't dare turn back. When I got home, I told my family. They laughed. But I couldn't shake the experience. Later, I looked online and discovered other sightings in Barber County, some near the exact area. I felt validated but didn't officially report my sighting until now. Also noticed, none. Other witnesses, none. I was alone in the car. Other stories, my uncle who lives nearby has heard strange howls and speculated about large animals living in the canyon. Time and conditions, 9 to 10 p.m., cold, clear night. Environment hilly fields with tree stands, deep gullies, and small creeks. The Tigard Valley River was nearby. Encounter 4. Two brothers confront upright creature, 1974. Submitted by Glenn Boulier. Date, Wednesday, September 13th, 2000. Location, Northern Princeton, British Columbia, Canada. In April 1974, my brother Alan and I were jogging early in the morning near Princeton. Snow flurries fell as we neared the Brown Bridge. Suddenly, about 100 to 150 feet ahead, we saw a massive upright figure step across the road and onto a gravel trail we frequently used. The creature was covered in thick, dark brown hair from head to toe. It stood at least 7.5 feet tall, with long arms and a barrel-shaped chest. We froze in place, too stunned to move. Alan shouted, startling the creature. It turned toward us, its dark eyes locking on ours. For what felt like an eternity, we stood in a silent standoff. Finally, it turned and walked away, disappearing around a bend. We debated following it, but decided against it. We later found its tracks in the snow, far larger than my size 8.5 shoe. The creature's stride was enormous, and we estimated its weight to be around 500 to 600 pounds. Also noticed, bare footprints in the snow, large and deep. Other witnesses, myself and my brother Alan. Other stories, none reported. Time and conditions, 5:30 to 6:30 a.m., cool, light snow flurries. Environment, a quiet gravel road near the Tulameen River, downhill from Princeton Airport. Each of these harrowing encounters adds a chilling layer to the enduring mystery of Sasquatch, spanning decades and stretching across remote wooded landscapes. Encounter 5. Glowing eyes seen during snowstorm, year 1995 to 1998, season winter, state New York, county Broome County. This incident occurred during a snowstorm, though I can't recall the exact month. It was around 1995, maybe 1998. We had a heavy snowstorm that night, with over a foot of snow on the ground. Around 11 p.m., I went out to shovel snow off my front porch, something I'd been doing all night to keep the door from getting blocked. As I shoveled, I had an unsettling feeling that I was being watched. Living in the country, I'm used to quiet and isolation, but this was different. I tried to brush it off, talking to my dog through the door to calm myself. I was too frightened to even glance around. It was pitch dark, and I just knew something was out there. Then my dog, who loves playing in the snow, began whining and acting desperate to come outside. I opened the door, and he bolted out as usual, but stopped abruptly on the porch steps. He froze, then turned and scratched frantically at the door to be let back inside. This was completely out of character. He's never afraid of wildlife and usually chases after deer or any other animals without hesitation. Now I was terrified. Summoning my courage, I scanned the driveway. That's when I saw them. Glowing eyes, reflecting like an animal's. But they were much higher off the ground than any deer. They stared directly at me, unblinking. I stood frozen in shock, my mind racing. It couldn't be a deer. It wasn't spooked by my noise, and why would a deer stand out in a storm instead of bedding down? My dog's reaction alone told me this wasn't normal. I strained to make out more details, but the only thing I could clearly see was the glowing eyes. Whatever it was tall and unmoving. Overcome with terror, I dashed inside and called my grandfather. He dismissed my story, insisting it was a deer, but I knew better. I've seen plenty of deer around here. This was different. Unfortunately, with all the snow that night, I couldn't check for tracks the next day. I wasn't about to go back out while the creature was still there. The distance between me and it was roughly 25 feet. Years later, strange things happened again. One day I heard loud knocking sounds, like someone hitting a hollow tree. The noise came from the woods where I have no nearby neighbors. That same day, while feeding the chickens, my son ran inside, saying he'd heard a horrible, high-pitched scream. We considered investigating, but ultimately decided against it. Also noticed, the night before the knocking and screaming, dogs farther up the mountain barked frantically for an extended period. I'd never heard those dogs bark like that before. It was unsettling. Time and conditions snowstorm incident late at night, heavy snow, minimal visibility, knocking and screaming, broad daylight, clear conditions. Environment: rural area surrounded by fields and woods. A creek runs behind my house, and the landscape includes wooded mountains and hills typical of New York State's countryside. Wildlife includes deer, squirrels, and occasionally black bears. At the time of the snowstorm, everything was blanketed in 2 to 3 feet of snow. Witnesses note, I'm not making any claims about what I saw, but everything I've described is true to the best of my memory. I'll never forget those eyes. Encounter 6. Witness spots legs of a large bipedal creature. Year 1985 or 1986. Season fall. State New York. County Broome County. This incident happened while I was standing near my house, enjoying the view of the woods with my dog. I wasn't in the woods, but across a creek from them. It was a quiet moment, and nothing unusual had happened before the sighting. No sounds, no disturbances. From about 100 feet away, I saw the lower half of a large bipedal creature. The upper half was hidden by the dense foliage of the trees. The legs were stocky and straight, covered in long hair about 4 to 5 inches in length. The hair was a golden reddish-brown color. As I watched, the creature seemed to sense my presence. It turned slowly and took a few steps before vanishing into the underbrush. It moved silently, and my dog didn't react at all. Thankfully, I had a firm grip on his collar. The creature was about 100 feet from me, separated by a nearly dry creek bed which was about 4 feet deep. I didn't hear any noise, and the whole encounter left me unsettled. I avoided that section of the property for about 6 years afterward. I've never told anyone about this sighting until now, and I haven't seen anything like it since. I don't believe it was a bear standing upright. The legs were too long and straight to match a bear's posture. Time and conditions. I was out for a walk with my dog during daylight hours. Environment. The property consists of fields that have grown in and wooded areas. A creek runs through the property, and in the area of the sighting, the creek has worn the rock down, creating a 4-foot deep creek bed. I was standing about 50 yards from my house, which wasn't visible from that spot. The area is part of our mowed lawn, but it slopes down a slight hill toward the creek. The woods across the creek are dense, providing plenty of cover for anything moving through. The surrounding area is very rural. Across the road from our property is a large swamp. Another swamp lies about a mile upstream where the creek originates. There's also a small runoff creek in the front of the property. Witnesses note. Thank you for providing a place where I can finally share this experience. Encounter 7, year 1994. Season fall. Date, September 14th. State, New York. County, Orange County. Location details, Harman State Park. Seasonal road off 7 Lakes Drive via Tirati Circle. Road closed in winter. Nearest town, Tuxedo, New York. Nearest road, NY State Thruway. Old Route 17, Arden Valley Road. My 2 best friends and I used to take late-night drives through Harman State Park to spot wildlife. Bears, deer, foxes, etc. The park's beauty and solitude in the off-season always drew us in. It was peaceful, but it could be creepy too. One night, as we drove along the winding Arden Valley Road, we had to go slow because of the sharp turns and steep drop-offs. I was in the front passenger seat with the high beams on. We were going no more than 25 to 30 miles per hour. At the farthest edge of the headlight's reach, I saw a large upright figure running across the road. It leaped up the embankment on the high side and vanished into the rhododendron thickets. I immediately freaked out and alerted my friends. The driver hit the brakes, and with the windows down, we could hear thrashing sounds as it fled up the slope. The sighting was over in seconds. Although the driver saw movement, he couldn't make out what I had seen. However, we both agreed on the sound of it crashing through the underbrush. My friends believed me because of the sheer look of fright and amazement on my face. The creature's legs were thick, long, and covered in hair. It moved with human-like strides and was tall enough that the headlights only illuminated up to its midsection. I couldn't make out its facial features, but its size and movement were unmistakable. None of us had been drinking or using any substances. I've since learned that a park worker had a sighting in almost the exact same spot. I would love to speak with them. I'm excited to finally share this encounter after years of hesitation. Also noticed, nothing else unusual. Other witnesses too, my two best friends, who were with me during our regular late-night drives through the park to view wildlife. Other stories. I later discovered a report from a park worker who lives in a cabin on Arden Valley Road. Their sighting was less than a mile from mine. Seeing their report encouraged me to come forward with my own experience. Time and conditions, around 11 p.m., clear, starlit night. No moonlight. Dry conditions, 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Environment, a narrow, unlit seasonal road with no shoulder, winding through steep slopes, small ponds, and creeks. The road passes over a small mountain and exits the park's backside. The area includes hardwood forests, some pine, and an old summer camp that was closed for the season. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey through dramatized Bigfoot encounters. If these stories gave you goosebumps, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Your support helps me bring more unique, spine-tingling tales to life. Thanks for visiting, and remember, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next adventure.